Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I
mean it. He's a threat to democracy. Well, okay. Couldn't read the word. He's a threat to democracy. You know how bad the press is? You know what they do? They take me saying that like that, and they say, Trump couldn't say the word democracy.
America made a vow. Never again would we bow down to a king. Months ahead would be incredibly difficult.
And he never sticks up for Washington. You know, they've taken the name George Washington off many schools and many different, can you believe it? The name George Washington is coming down from many schools, many in California, and he ought to stop that.
But General Washington knew something in his bones. Something about the spirit of the troops he was leading. Something about the soul of the nation he was struggling to be born. In his general order, he predicted, and I quote, with one heart and one mind, with fortitude and with patience, they would overcome every difficulty, the troops he was leading. And they did. They did. This army that lacked blankets and food, clothes and shoes, this army whose march left bloody bare footprints in the snow, this ragtag army made up of ordinary people, their mission, George Washington declared, was nothing less than a sacred cause. That was the phrase he used, a sacred cause.
Take a look at what he's doing on the border, or inflation, or our military, that horrible day in Afghanistan. You look at what he's done with energy all throughout the world. We're an embarrassment as a country. We become an embarrassment as a country.
General George Washington knew he faced the most daunting of tasks, to fight and win a war against the most powerful empire existed in the world at the time. His mission was clear: liberty, not conquest; freedom, not domination; national independence, not individual glory.
You know, I don't know if you saw it. I was on Sean Hannity, a good guy, really good guy, right? And we did a town hall, and he says, tell us, you're not going to be a dictator, right? I said, Sean, I'm going to be a dictator for one day, for drilling and for closing the border. And after that, I'm not going to be a dictator.
Freedom, liberty, democracy, American democracy. I just visited the grounds of Valley Forge. I've been there a number of times from the time I was a Boy Scout years ago. You know, it's the very site that I think every American should visit, because it tells a story of the pain and the suffering and the true patriotism it took to make America. Today we gather in a new year, some 246 years later, just one day before January 6th. A date forever shared in our memory because it was on that day that we nearly lost America. Lost it all.
That's what they say. It's much more than that. You saw the numbers that came out yesterday on the election. Everybody saw those numbers. They were released. The fake news doesn't want to talk about them. But it's a disgrace what happened in 2020. It's a disgrace, and everybody knows it. I think they have 81% of the people understand that.
Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. And it's what the 2024 election is all about. The choice is clear. Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America, not you. Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power.
But our military has gone woke, and we're teetering on the edge of World War III. We've never been closer than we are right now to World War III. There's only one candidate in this race who is going to be up to the task of saving America from every single Biden disaster starting on day one. Number one, I know the players on the other side, and they always respected your country. I don't want to say they respected me, but boy, did they respect this country when I was in charge.
Our campaign is different. For me and Kamala, our campaign is about America. It's about you. It's about every age and background that occupy this country. It's about the future we're going to continue to build together. And our campaign is about preserving and strengthening our American democracy.
You wouldn't have had Ukraine. You wouldn't have had Israel being attacked. Russia wouldn't be attacking Ukraine, but you wouldn't have had the attack on Israel. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had any of this stuff. You wouldn't have China longing to go into Taiwan. You know, they're just waiting for the right moment. They wouldn't even talk about it. They weren't even talking about it. And they won't be, I promise you that.
3 years ago tomorrow, we saw with our own eyes the violent mob storm the United States Capitol. It was almost in disbelief as you first turned on the television. For the first time in our history, insurrectionists had come to stop the peaceful transfer of power in America. First time. Smashing windows, shattering doors, attacking the police.
But with your vote in these caucuses, we're going to finish the job and we're going to get it done. And we're going to actually be stronger than ever before. It's hard to believe because you see the damage that's been done. No president has ever, I often say you can take the 10 worst presidents in the history of our country, you can add them up, put them together, and they haven't done the damage that Joe Biden's done to this country. What he's done to this country is unthinkable.
Gallows were erected as the MAGA crowd chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." Inside, they hunted for Speaker Pelosi. The House was chanting as they marched through and smashed windows, "Where's Nancy?" Over 140 police officers were injured. Jill and I attended the funeral of police officers who died as a result of the events of that day.
Biden's record is an unbroken streak of weakness, incompetence, corruption, and failure. Other than that, he's doing quite well, isn't he, don't you? That's a hell of a list. That's a hell of a list, right? That's why Crooked Joe is staging his pathetic fear-mongering campaign event in Pennsylvania today. Did you see him? He was stuttering through the whole thing. He's he's a threat to democracy. I'm a threat. They've weaponized government. He's saying, I'm a threat to democracy.
Because of Donald Trump's lies, they died because these lies brought a mob to Washington. He promised it would be wild, and it was. He told the crowd to fight like hell, and all hell was unleashed. He promised he would right them, everything they did. He would be side by side with them.
We're going to take our country back. We're going to take our country back. So sad to see what's happening.
Then, as usual, he left the dirty work to others. He retreated to the White House. As America was attacked from within, Donald Trump watched on TV in a private small dining room off the Oval Office. The entire nation watched in horror. The whole world watched in disbelief. And Trump did nothing. Members of his staff, members of his family, Republican leaders who were under attack at that very moment pled with him. Act. Call off the mob. Imagine had he gone out and said, stop. And still, Trump did nothing.
It's in trouble like it's never been before, in my opinion. We have a man who's grossly incompetent dealing with nuclear war. He's dealing against Russia. He's dealing against President Xi of China. If you would deal with these people, you'd say it's not a fair fight.
An attempt to overturn a free and fair election by force and violence. A record 81 million people voted for my candidacy and to end his presidency. Trump lost the popular vote by 7 million. Trump's claims about the 2020 election never could stand up in court. Trump lost 60 court cases, 60.
Even though, the polls have us way, way up, strange things happen. So if you don't mind, look, she's shaking her head. You're right. Oh.
Trump lost the Republican-controlled states. Trump lost before a Trump-appointed judge and then judges. And Trump lost before the United States Supreme Court. All of it. He lost. Trump lost recount after recount after recount and state after state. But in desperation and weakness, Trump and his MAGA followers went after election officials who ensured your power as a citizen would be heard. These public servants had their lives forever upended by attacks and death threats for simply doing their jobs. In Atlanta, Georgia, a brave black mother and her daughter, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, were doing their jobs as elected workers until Donald Trump and his MAGA followers targeted and threatened them, forcing them from their homes and unleashing racist vitriol on them. Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who was just hit with a $148 million judgment for cruelty and defamation that he inflicted against them. Other state and local elected officials across the country faced similar personal attacks. In addition, Fox News agreed to pay a record $787 million for the lies they told about voter fraud.
So don't stay home if you want to save America. Each and every one of you, get out and vote and really bring your friends. We talk about 10. Bring 10 people, but bring whatever it is. You can also bring more than 10 people, I guess. But bring whatever you have to bring.
Let's be clear about the 2020 election. Trump exhausted every legal avenue available to him to overturn the election. Every one. But the legal path just took Trump back to the truth that I'd won the election and he was a loser.